Oh baby, everybody, and we're back. This is before the episode. I promised you guys something very special a while back, and I'm finally here to deliver. This is the first episode of a podcast that I'm working on called Generations. Basically, what Generations is I go to a senior living community near my house and talk to people about their life stories. I'd love to say that I'd be back next week with a brand new episode, but the reality of it is this one almost took me a year to put together just by itself. I'm super busy right now with law school, and I'm not going to have time. But I wanted to give you guys a taste of what I've been working on, and this is it. Please enjoy and give me feedback online if you like it or not. I'd just love to hear what you think. Thanks for listening. Thank you for tuning into Generations, a podcast about people. In episode 1, we talked to Steve Chalmers, a former ad executive who began competitive ballroom dancing later in life. Special thanks go out to Aberdeen Heights for making this podcast possible, and also the band Sand for providing music. I met Steve in September of 2016 at Aberdeen Heights, a senior living community in Kirkwood, Missouri. This was also a week before I was getting married. We started off our conversation with tips and tricks that I can use to have a successful marriage, hopefully one as successful as Steve's.
The first one is separate bathrooms.
Of course, yeah, that's a good start.
Yes, everybody needs their privacy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the second thing is that, and this is what I got from my father-in-law. He was a good mentor.
Mm-hmm.
He said, just because you're married to each other, you don't own each other.
Yeah.
You have your own personality and your own activities that you do as an individual.
Yeah.
And it combines with your marriage, and so you keep your own personality.
That's a really good way to put it. Yeah, to have your own
And the
house.
third one is each have mad money. In other words, money that you don't have to explain when you spend it and what you're spending it. So those are pragmatic. They're not psychological or social help.
As we get to know each other a little bit better, Steve starts to open up. He tells me about his first real job.
At 17, I was working as a busboy before that for 3 years, and I had an appendix operation, and they didn't want me to work as a busboy.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to my homeroom teacher, who happened to have the jobs. She was in charge of part-time jobs.
Yeah.
And I told her, Miss Wilhelm, I need a job, and she said, well, there's 2 or 3 people ahead of you, and I said, I need it right now. And I tell this story because it tells how many people along the way have helped you.
Mm-hmm.
To make a long story short, she found me a job,
Yeah.
and I went there, and it was Chicago Show Display Company,
Mm-hmm.
and I looked around, and in a week or two, I just loved I loved the smell of the place. I loved the activity.
Mm-hmm.
We were doing things for major companies.
Yeah.
And so I knew at 17 exactly what I wanted to do and how I was going to do it.
I asked Steve about college.
I finished 2 years of college while I was working.
Mm-hmm.
It took me 3 years to get through 2 years.
Yeah.
And then I went into the Coast Guard.
What made you choose the Coast Guard?
Well, the first thing is that it was 3 years instead of 4.
Yeah, that's good. That's
Maybe
right
it was
there.
4.
Yeah.
And it was 3. The other thing was that at being of Greek descent,
Mm-hmm.
we kind of like small boats, so they do make good sailors.
Yeah.
So I have the tradition.
After finishing his service, Steve returned home.
I came back, and I picked up on my job, and then I went to Northwestern for another 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And when I graduated from Northwestern in 1959, I had 2 children, 1 on the way, 2 beat-up cars, and a house. But I was on my way.
If there's one trait that defines Steve, it's his optimism. This optimism has helped him out throughout his life, especially in business.
They thought I could sell pretty well. I had some small accounts up in Chicago, but I was doing pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted to develop the Midwest
Yeah.
in St. Louis and Kansas City and in Louisville. And so they sent me down here, and it was 2 years before I sold anything.
It took time for Steve to learn about St. Louis and how things worked.
This is a very parochial town, and I had to break down the barrier. So it took me 2 years to get an order, but I had a boss who supported me.
Mm-hmm.
He saw that I really liked to do the job and that I wanted to get ahead and so forth. So
Yeah.
he covered me. He carried me for 2 years, and then I start selling. And in 1965, I got a check net of $50,000.
Steve made a career out of defying the odds. I think one of the greatest examples of this is when he started ballroom dancing late in his 70s.
I was doing Zumba classes at the gym that
Yeah.
I belonged to. And so people said I went on Saturday morning because I was the only guy.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to look at the gals.
Of course.
Well, the fact of the matter is you don't want to look at those girls on a Saturday morning. So I got interested, and I learned how to dance. I always was a free dance dancer, freelance, so to speak. You
Yeah.
know, not structured.
Just like to
And
do it on
so,
the weekends
yeah.
and stuff.
And Zumba taught you how to dance underneath your belt
Okay.
and not move your shoulders.
Yeah.
And then I got to doing that pretty well. And then I was watching Dancing with the Stars.
Of course.
And I saw some steps there that I said, I think I can do those.
Uh-huh.
And so I got into ballroom dancing, and I go 3 times a week.
Yeah.
And then we've competed in 3 different venues. This year we competed in Nashville,
Yeah.
and we did 54 dances.
Wow.
And fortunately, they don't have a category for my age.
Really? What
Yeah.
is it? What does it top out at? And
70 and over.
Oh, really?
So I compete at that level,
Yeah.
and we do very well.
That's fantastic.
And then the next one was here in St. Louis.
Okay.
And we did, at this one, we did 48.
That is a crazy amount of dances to
Yeah.
be doing.
Interesting enough, you don't, if you look at Dancing with the Stars,
Yeah.
it's less than 2 minutes
Okay.
each
Yeah.
dance. So at our event here, Dancing with the Stars, we did 10 dances at 3 minutes each. And I learned that's too much.
Yeah.
So at our program that's coming up on December 2nd, we're going to have professional dancers,
Wow.
and then each of us will have every other dance so we can get a break in between.
That's kind of nice because when you do those in the competition, you have to do them back to back.
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
That must be tiring.
Yes, but you know what happens?
Mm-hmm.
You hear your name, you hear your the captain bringing in the groups. They're all
Yeah.
lined up. Your turn now. Get on the floor.
Yeah.
And then the music starts, and you get jacked up.
I'm sure
with
the adrenaline.
endorphins kick in.
Yeah.
And you're not even thinking about how tired you are. You're just
Yeah.
the biggest thing in dancing is to maintain what they call your frame.
Yeah.
And if you have the posture and maintain your frame, you're 80% there.
Okay.
And that's very difficult to do.
I'm sure.
You kind of want to move your head around and everything, but you've got to have the arms open wide, your shoulders down, and your head up.
Huh. Yeah. I've never been. I went to cotillion as a child, but I think that was the extent of my dancing experience.
Well, you know, as we get older, we have a tendency to kind of droop our shoulders.
Yeah.
And this is the perfect activity for me.
For posture.
Because I used to play a lot of tennis and golf, but I've had enough of that.
Yeah.
So this is a new and exciting time of my life.
Yeah, it sounds really fun. And your partner, you were in the over 70. Your partner's quite a bit younger than you.
Yes, she's 40 years old.
40
But
years old.
She is a good pick.
Yeah.
I happened to be in the shoe.
How did you meet her? How did that happen?
Well, I was buying a pair of dance shoes.
Yeah.
And the guy said, "Is there anything else you'd like?" And Nina Middendorf, she was born and raised in Germany.
Okay.
She's 40 years old.
Yeah.
Walked in. I didn't see her face. I said, "How about that?"
Yeah.
Pointing at her. And he said, "Well, she's available because she's a teacher."
Oh, okay.
And she turns around and she says to me, I say to her, actually, I said, "Are you 5'2" and 115 pounds. And she said, no, I'm 5'10". I'm not 5'10". I'm 5'1" and 110 pounds.
Yeah.
And I said, sold. That was, the rest is history. And that
So
was about 4 years ago.
So she originally just started teaching you, and then you started competing in competitions together, or she?
Yeah.
Okay.
She's my only teacher, and she's the only one I compete with.
That's exciting. And
Yeah. She has 2 children. And you know, when you're dancing, you're in somebody's personal space.
Absolutely.
And consequently, when you're out on the floor, the judges can tell if you have a connection.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the way you dance together.
Yeah.
And so you're in somebody's space. It's very personal, but you keep it at a very professional
Of course.
way.
Yeah. And it seems like one of those things that is, it's really beautiful to watch and to see, and it's such a performance between 2 people.
I have my wardrobe, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But for women, it's very difficult. A gown costs $3,500.
You're kidding me.
No. And it's a big investment.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But when you get on the floor, all the women look beautiful.
Yeah, and those, I mean, yeah.
And the guys look all spruced up.
Yeah. And have you met a lot of really nice people in doing this?
You meet people, and you meet them at different venues.
Yeah.
And you feel more comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
The competition is done on a very, I'd say a very nice level.
Yeah.
Nice is used a lot as an adjective, but I mean, they are not looking to beat you
Yeah.
per se. You know, if you win, you win. If you lose, you lose.
That's not.
And they don't dwell on it. That's the point I'm making.
Yeah, I mean, it's supposed to just be this fun thing that everybody does together.
Yeah. And it's just interesting how many pairs are not married to each other.
Yeah, I'm sure it's just people that you meet or like you, I mean, that you just came across and became your teacher and then that you compete with.
And I tell a lot of young guys, you want to meet girls? Take up ballroom dancing.
Yeah, because I'm sure there's not a lot of young guys that are just like, hey, this is what I want to do, get into ballroom dancing. In addition to competing several times a year, Steve also plans performances at the community where he lives.
I've been very active in the entertainment, with the entertainment committee here at the Aberdeen, and we've put on a spring dance showcase, ballroom dancing, and then we have the decoration of the tree.
A few months after interviewing Steve, he invited me back for the decoration of the tree. I went back, along with my mom who works there, to finally see him in action.
Ballroom Dance Showcase. We have a collective mixture of dance and song today. Let the show begin.
Steve runs onto the dance floor like a man half his age. He and his partner glide around the dance floor, making it look effortless. It is truly unbelievable how much movement, time, and memory can go into these dances.
Yeah. It's great. It looks so seamless, but it's so hard. I'm sure you know.
That's not even his regular partner who does competitive. Like, your mom and dad dance. We look just like that.
Around the house all the time.
After the dance, Steve takes the microphone.
That dance by another 8 beats would have hooked me up to the bell.
Seeing Steve dance helped me understand him more as a person, because dance, much like life,
is never perfect.
Don't be afraid to say you goofed. You made a mistake.
Yeah.
Our politicians could learn a lot from just saying, I made a mistake.
Yeah.
It is so disarming. And it's one of the things that carried me through.
Yeah.
And I never did it on the phone. I'd fly to the guy's office or the woman's office and say, here's where we goofed up.
Yeah.
Here's what we're going to do. And get on with it.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are afraid to say they made a mistake.
It's true.
It's very disarming.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, but it's the way life is, you have to have a little luck.
Yeah.
Some people say you make your luck, but you have to have luck with your health.
I thank Steve for taking time out of his busy day to sit down and talk with me.
Thank you so much. You know, in a way, it's kind of fun to relive those magic moments that I had. And I don't get a chance to do that too much, but I realized, even in retrospect, that we did a lot.
To say Steve has done a lot would be an understatement. From joining the Coast Guard to beginning in sales, all the way to ballroom dancing, Steve has accomplished everything in his life while keeping a positive attitude. Big thanks go out to Aberdeen Heights for making this podcast possible, Steve for sitting down with me, and also the band Sand for providing music.